All right, well, hello everybody. My name is Melanie and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today is our third video in our booth chat series of videos that we're doing. And I'm really excited today to welcome Astrid with the Chipped Mouse. She is a Canadian antique booth seller. And I think that we met maybe 2019. It was pre-pandemic, I remember. And I've been following along her business since then. She's actually an alum of the Booth Seller Bootcamp. And I invited her on today because y'all, she's just doing some really cool stuff with her business. She's killing it at her social media. And I wanted you guys to hear from her, especially from someone that's on the other side of the border. That could just be great for any of you Canadians that are there watching, because sometimes the business can look a little different. So that's what we're going to do today. If you're not a subscriber, then please subscribe. I hope to have more and more of these videos. So far, they've been really well received. You guys seem to enjoy them. So we're going to just dive in, and I'm going to welcome Astrid, and I just want to give you a chance to say hi, tell us about yourself, your business, the Chipped Mouse. How long have you been in business? Just kind of the quick down and dirty of how that all got started.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for having me. Well, I started my business, the Chipped Mouse, as you said. 2019, I officially went full-time.
Okay.
I have a background in accounting.
Oh,
So yeah, it's funny because I was a financial officer for years, and just doing the same old thing every day in the office was getting to me. So I had always painted furniture basically out of necessity. We got married, my husband and I, in 2000. We bought our first house, and of course you're broke,
Yeah.
right? You have no money for furniture,
right?
You get hand-me-downs and you find whatever you can. And just for whatever reason, I was like, we were finding good pieces of furniture, but they weren't necessarily good looking pieces of furniture. Like I'm saying, they were, they solid pieces. So I just started taking paint, and at that time it was just whatever wall paint I had left over.
Right.
And I knew the basics of, doing some good prep work. My dad was always into carpentry, all that kind of stuff. So I kind of picked up a little bit of that, and I always knew that you had to sand and clean it up before you painted. And then I just started painting furniture and then had it just in my house. Mm-hmm. So I had always been doing that. And people would come over and say, wow, that's great. You're just painting furniture. It looks so good. But nobody else I knew was doing it. And definitely no one was selling it. That was for sure.
Right.
So, fast forward quite a few years when you have babies and all that kind of stuff and work takes over. But now by 2019, my kids are, teenagers, and I have more time. I want to say more time on my hands, but just I can think about things a little differently now. Yeah. So they don't need me by their side 24/7 anymore.
Right.
And just being in that office that long, I had the itch to get out. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to go back to painting furniture, and I'm going to start selling it and sell it online and see if anybody, takes to it. And it started selling. And then quickly I was like, okay, I got to find somewhere to sell it in person. And of course the option is always, get your own brick and mortar, which, as you know, is a scary idea to do and jump in right away.
Yeah.
So long story short, I found this antique mall. It's in Woodstock, Ontario, which is just probably an hour or so west of Toronto. Okay. And I rented a booth, and I said, worst case scenario, nobody likes my stuff. And, maybe I've only lost a little bit of money. Right. And it took off right away, actually. So
it's amazing.
Yeah, I was so nervous doing it, but it was successful right from the first month. I didn't have to pay any rent. I covered my rent costs right away. And I was hooked after that first month when, you could see the sales coming in. And I'm not saying it was huge sales, but it was enough to cover my rent plus give me a little extra. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And it's just kind of grown from there. So
that's fantastic. My story is very similar. Like, we were married young, and my husband worked in ministry, and we were poor, and but I wanted to decorate my house. And so, I picked up furniture from the side of the road and added legs to it and did weird stuff and painted it. And it was a necessity. And I think the first thing I ever painted I used a can of pink spray paint, and it was like this whole tree that somebody was getting rid of. So yeah, and then one day it was like, oh, maybe I could sell this. So, and let me pause the conversation for just a minute, because I'm seeing that, like, okay, this little guy right here, I totally just noticed that he's there in this shot. If anybody, this is my 9-year-old's jujitsu wrestling dummy named Carl. So I should have probably moved him out. I just noticed he was there. If you're watching this and going, what is that red bullseye? It's Carl, the wrestling dummy. Just ignore him. He's over there.
That's awesome.
This is just kind of real life here, right? Running a business from home when you've got kids, all that kind of stuff. So, all right. So you started then really late 2019. You didn't have a long before 2020 hit, but you made some adjustments through that. Tell me how it's progressed now from, are you still mainly doing painted furniture? Have you added some other things in? What have you done to kind of grow and expand, from that start point?
Yeah. So I can't remember exactly the timeline, but within less than 12 months, I already knew that the booth that I had was about, I think they're about 12 feet wide and maybe 10 feet deep.
Okay.
That's the size of booth I had. Well, that doesn't take long to fill that with furniture. So I knew I wanted to maybe like double the size if I could. And I just let the booth know, or the booth owners know, hey, if this space beside me ever comes up, let me know how much it's going to be. I'm thinking of expanding. So I think it was less than 12 months. I doubled the size of my space so then I could bring in more furniture that I painted.
Yeah.
And then I started bringing in a lot of small little things. So I paint the furniture, but I also started, I pretty much paint everything that goes into my booth. So if I'm finding old tins, I'm painting them. I'm painting them either, white, and then maybe stenciling something on it.
Okay.
Wood trays, basically anything that paint will adhere to, I'm painting it and I'm putting it into my booth. And that's what started selling, was all the small stuff as well.
Okay.
So added more furniture. And if you are a furniture seller, you know that, you're not going to sell a piece of furniture every day, probably not even every week. Maybe if you sell 1 or 2 a week, great, or a month, that's great. But it's those smalls. Those
Right.
smalls are what people come by, they grab it. If it's $10, $20, those are the things that are, essentially paying your rent.
Right.
So I just started filling up. Once I expanded, filled up with a lot of smalls as well. And then I get a lot of people asking, how I do everything. What paint do I use? How do you do the prep work and all that kind of stuff, right? That goes along with any DIY projects. So I thought, well, let's try and expand to supplies that go with anybody that wants to do this stuff on their own. They like maybe what I have done and think, hey, you know what, I can try it myself. So then I expanded and I bring in Country Chic Paint. It's a Canadian paint brand. It is a clay-based paint, so very similar to chalk, but it's thick, it distresses well, it goes on nicely. So I started using that, and I had used it before on my own projects, and brought that in and just made sure that a lot of the things in my booth are painted with that paint. So then people could come in and say, oh, okay, that dresser's painted in this color from this paint. I'm going to give it a try. So it was just kind of a natural progression. It fit in with what I was already doing, and it kind of tapped into another demographic of people that didn't want to buy the stuff completely finished and had enough confidence to say, hey, you know what? I have pieces like this at home. I'm going to give it a try myself and start painting on my own. So yeah. That's just kind of how it kind of morphed. It was just like a natural progression because it fit in with what I was already doing.
Yeah. So several things in that you said that I really love and I think are super smart is that you, like, even with your smalls, you're staying on brand with your booth, right? So you have a lot of painted furniture, and so you're taking smalls and you're painting those too. And that you're probably able to find really, really cheap things that are just kind of ugly and then make them cute. And so you've really kind of been consistent, with that branding in your booth, which is awesome. And then I love too that you weren't afraid to say, hey, if I start selling this paint or teaching people how I'm doing this, that doesn't mean like, it's not some secret I have to keep to myself, then they're not going to buy my stuff. Like, that's something that I hear a lot from people that are painting furniture. They don't want to start teaching other people how to paint furniture because there's this thought of, well, then they're not going to buy it from me. And that may be the case with a couple people, but really what you said hit the nail on the head. What you did was you reached a new demographic of people. You kept your old customers that don't ever want to do it themselves. They're just never going to want to. Even if you've got the paint there for them, they don't want to do it. So you kept those customers, but then you added all of these other people over here too. So you didn't lose anything by sharing that information. You actually gained new people. I mean, maybe you lost a sale here or there, but on the whole, I'm sure that expanded your customer base and your growth.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because if you think, as you're a DIYer, I'm a DIYer.
Right.
And to put it bluntly, we're cheap.
Yeah.
So anybody coming to our booth with the finished product probably has the same mindset that I have, thinking, I can it's nice that it's finished, but I probably don't want to pay that price, the finished price.
Right.
So they're not going to buy from me anyways. So then why not try to get them to buy something from me that will help them do their own thing? Yeah. Right? Because I never had them as a customer anyways. They weren't going to buy my dresser finished. They were coming to my booth and saying, oh, I like that color. Oh, I like how it's been, distressed. I'm going to try it myself anyways. And then they might've walked away and then gone to the hardware store and bought their own paint.
Right.
So this way, I think it just kind of ups my percentage, my chance of them saying, yep, I'm going to do it myself. Oh, great. The paint is right here.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to the hardware store. I mean, I'm sure it still happens quite often. People walk by and then go somewhere else and buy their paint, which is totally fine, because I probably do the same thing sometimes too. Right. But, it just kind of, it just gave me that option of maybe increasing my sales a little bit to people that didn't want to buy it finished at all. So
absolutely. There are so many different types of customers, and you're completely right. I am cheap. Like I am not my best customer, like I don't want me as a customer. But I understand that there are me's out there. And so, if you can, there's multiple different types of customers. And so you can have different products to service different ones. Like most of us that are running booths are like us. And we assume that everybody shopping our space is like us, and they're not. And so we've got to try and think like those customers who don't want to take the time to paint it and find it, and they're just out having lunch with their friends and shopping and having fun, and they're going to buy it because it's cute. Like, we want to hit them because they're going to pay us higher dollar. But then, if we can have something over here for the us's of the world, that's great too. It just expands your customer base.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it was a natural expansion. Like, it wasn't something completely different that didn't match what I was already doing. So I think that's how it works, right? Like, if all of a sudden I brought in, I don't know, clothing, right? Some people would be like, that doesn't really fit with the painted furniture, maybe, right? So that was my thinking anyways. And I just thought, okay, I'll give it a try. Worst case scenario, nobody buys the paint, nobody likes the paint, and I've got a lifetime supply of paint now to take home and use, right?
Yeah.
That's what I figured. So
yeah. Excellent point. And in fact, I have another video that is about, should you be selling paint in your booth? And so I'll put it kind of up here at the top of this video for people to go check out if you're considering selling paint, because you're right. Like, it fit with what you were doing. It was a product that you liked and you already used and you were comfortable with. And so it was local in your area. I'm sure it's pretty quick for you to be able to get it. You picked a Canadian brand rather than buying something that's coming from California, like you were really smart about it. And we talked some more about that in that other video. So those are all fantastic, great thoughts. Okay. My next question for you is, what online avenues do you use to promote your business? And do you have any tips to share with someone who's trying to figure out how they can market and promote their booth?
Okay. I started with a Facebook business page because it just seemed like, where I'm the generation, I'm not sure how much older I am than you, but hey, I remember the day that Facebook came in, right? So, and it was a big thing. So our demographic knows Facebook.
Right.
And So I'm like, okay, I know how to use Facebook inside and out as far as just socially. I'm going to do my business page there. And in all honesty, I was like, okay, well, I have X amount of friends on my personal page. Even if I can get half of them just to come over and check out what I'm doing on my business page, I will be thrilled. And so that's how it started. And, and I'm sure if anyone who's researched how to grow your following on social media, it's all about consistency. It's the only thing is like, you have to be consistent, even when you think nobody is paying attention. Mm-hmm. They are. So many people are so timid of leaving a like or, making a comment or anything, but there's so many people that are still absorbing what you're putting out there, but not giving you the feedback. Yes. So that's the one thing is no matter what you're doing, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and I have a blog, and all of those things, I'm trying to be as consistent as possible and just posting. Like Facebook, I post every day. Some days it's harder than others to get on there just with everyday life. Instagram changes so much, just like Facebook. So, sometimes it's hard to know whether I should be posting, just a static post every couple of days. But, Instagram stories, people are loving videos, right? So on Instagram, just showing people what you're doing every day behind the scenes, that's a huge thing still. It's all about, videos, really. It's all about videos.
Right.
Yeah. And like I said, the hardest part, I think, is not knowing who's paying attention and who's not, because as you know, just think about how many times you're probably on Facebook, Instagram, you're absorbing people's content and you might like it, but you'll just, after you've absorbed it, you'll just keep going. You won't make a comment, you won't make a like, any of that, but it doesn't mean that you don't like what they're putting out there, and you may love it. You just, right. Sometimes it's hard to describe, but just be as consistent as possible. If you can't do it every day, that's fine. But if it's a matter of you wanting to grow your business, you have to be on there all the time.
Absolutely. So
and it doesn't even have to be anything complicated, just a little piece of something, right?
I think we really overthink it sometimes, or we make it really personal, and it's not personal. Because I mean, you're right. Like, again, we have to remember, just like with our booth, like we have to put ourselves in the minds of our customers. And so when we're doing social media, you have to put ourselves in the minds of the person on the other end of the screen. And they're just sitting there, in the parking lot waiting to pick their kid up from school. And they're just kind of doing this. And the fact that they don't say something, it's not personal, but they still saw it, and they remembered, like, you still, checked in with them. They're going to remember your name because it was there and they saw it, and they're just busy. Yeah. And not everybody engages. Like, there's so many more people on social media that just consume and watch and never talk back to you. Only some people are going to take the time to do that, but there's still this huge amount of other people that are. And we can think, oh, nobody's paying attention, but that there's millions of people paying attention.
Right.
So you were doing a really, really good job with your Facebook page. I spent some time over there this morning checking it out. I can tell you're being really intentional with what you're doing. You're not just throwing up, here's what I have for sale. So tell us a little bit about, like, if you're posting 1 time a day, what do you have a strategy? Do you have something that you're trying to do, with the people over there, rather than just, here's the next picture for my booth of what's for sale?
There's a few different things I think about. Sometimes it's all about, okay, I want to be consistent. I want to post at the same time every day, not for any particular reason. It's just, I'm kind of that type of person that just likes to keep things on schedule.
Right.
So some weeks I will have it every morning at 6:30 a.m. I've got my post going out for the week, right? Or for that day. But a lot of the time, though, I don't know if it's a small business thing or not, but it feels kind of, I don't know, icky to always just kind of push what you're selling, right? So I'm a firm believer, if you can give people information, because I'm in the DIY world, tell them how I did something. And then, you know, just on the little thing on the bottom, if it is for sale, I can say, you know what, oh, if you don't want to make it yourself, you want it done already, you can pick it up at my booth. And I'll say that for maybe 1 or 2 posts a week. The rest of the time, I'll just share, I don't know, I'll just share things that I'm working on, and I'll give the people the steps. I'll say, hey, okay, this is how I did it, and this is the end product. And I don't know, I don't have a real strategy. I wish I could say I did, but I like to be authentic in that way. And just because if it was me absorbing that content, I like getting free information on how to do stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I don't always want to be sold to.
Right.
And I have made, through my Facebook and my Instagram, I've made, like, I would say, I guess, internet friends where they're sending me messages. Hey, I really love what you did. And then we just have a conversation going on in the background. They ask me my opinion on stuff or how to do these things. And I don't mind sharing that at all. So maybe because I kind of look at it as, I'm just going to share what I know. If you want to buy from me at my booth, great. If you don't, I'm still going to share, because I would like it if someone did that for me. I think that's kind of what it boils down to.
Yeah.
And as you know, again, you consume your own social media accounts. You love seeing behind the scenes stuff. So people I always throw up a picture of my dog every once in a while, my husband, the kids. And every once in a while, I check my analytics. I am not obsessive about it. I just like, okay, what's my reach on that? And I can tell you, since I have started that Facebook page, the business one, my highest reaching posts of all time over like the last 3 years are my personal ones. Whether it's a picture of that dog just sitting there, if it's a picture of my husband and I say happy birthday. My kids, okay, my kid went away to university and I had a little post that said, I didn't cry today. I left her, but I didn't cry. Exploded. And it's like, and it, you know, it's funny in a sense, and it's very I guess humbling as well, that so many people are actually interested in the personal life as well, not just how I paint something. So all that kind of stuff goes through my brain when I'm deciding on what I'm going to post.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And whether you were able to kind of name your strategy or not, I would say your strategy is that you're being a real human being at your Facebook page. You're not just stuff on a shelf that's there for people to buy. Like you've presented yourself as there's a human here on the other side of the screen running this. And I was going to say, like, I saw a picture of your husband and you wished him happy birthday. There was all these people that commented. I'm the same way. Some of my highest posts, I had a kitten get hit by a car this time last year. And I posted about that. I was like super sad for like a whole week. Still sad about it. It's a year later. And I mean, that post went bananas. And yeah, I put a picture of me yawning in the kitchen one day. Is this silly picture that my husband took. It was this ridiculous yawn. And I just talked about, man, I've been really tired this week. The winter's hard. You know, what's going on with you guys? And you know, those posts don't necessarily, people go, well, nobody buys anything from you then. And I'm like, well, you're right. They don't. But what happens is all of those people that just engaged with that content, the next post that I see where I do sell something, they're going to see it. And they're going to remember me, silly me yawning, or that my kitten just died, or they're going to have some sort, when I do try to sell them, they're going to feel connected to me and remember me and see my face. And people like to buy from people that they know, like, and trust. And so
Absolutely.
That's the game with the social media. People will tell me, well, it's not, you know, it's just not working for me. And I use the analogy of, you know, it's like we were talking before the video started recording about, we've got kids trying to learn how to drive, right? And the importance of having a car to get where you need to go. And we all want a car that's going to be reliable and safely get us where we need to go, when we need to get there, and always work, right? Well, for that car to do that job, you got to put gas in it. You got to change the oil. You got to air up the tires, right? Well, what if you just said, well, that's too much money. That takes too much time. I don't want to stop and get gas. I'm late. Well, guess what? Like, your car's going to die. I have run out of gas on the side of the road, sadly, multiple times in my life. I hate to admit it, but I have. And I think that's how we treat our social media. Like, we want it to deliver for us, but we aren't giving it what it needs to function. And so Facebook especially is built on relationship and community. That's what it wants. And so if you're not ever giving it relationship and community, it's not going to drive you where you want it to go. You got to give it a little bit of what it wants, and then it will deliver better for you. So I think
absolutely.
you're doing that really, really well. And you can see that with your following and the numbers you have on your page and how that's growing. So kudos to you for doing
thank you.
And
thank you. I appreciate that, because there are, like I said, there are so many days where it's like, is anybody listening?
Yeah.
And then I think in my head, and then I'm like, you know what? If it's a good day and nobody's listening, then I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to talk to the universe. I'm going to just talk to nobody. I don't really care. I'm just going to send it out there. And I'm going to be honest, there's days when I'm like, I don't know what to post. Does anybody care about, how I painted this, where I picked it up? Mm-hmm. But some days I do have to do that mindset shift and just say, yeah, it doesn't matter if nobody's responding. Just somebody, maybe, I don't know, 5 years down the road might see it or something and be like, hey, that's a good idea, or I like that. And yeah, so it's I just got to change my mind sometimes. And
that's right. And it doesn't have to take all day, like you said,
no.
you can do it in the morning, schedule it, boom, and then it's done. And so we don't want to spend all day on there. We're business owners. We got better things to do than being on our social media all day. So, okay. Question. Let's see. One thing that you wish you knew, maybe when you first started, one thing that you felt, something you felt like you could have done better, or maybe one thing that surprised you. For people that are kind of starting out, if you could give them a little nugget of like, hey, I know this now, and it would have been really helpful at the start, maybe, had I known this. It could be good or bad, but do you have something like that to share?
I will say, when I decide to do something new, I'm one of those people, like, I will read about it for days and days and research and try to figure out, okay, what roadblocks could I come up to? And I'm trying to plan it all out, which sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Mm-hmm. So before I opened my booth, I did as much research as I could, tried to figure out, how to make sure that at least that first month I was covering my rent. That was all it was, right? And the one thing I will say probably is, don't underestimate the value of selling smalls in your booth. Mm. Especially if you're a furniture painter, or if you have expensive pieces. My first month, I did sell some furniture, but really what covered my rent were those $10 items. Because if you think of it again as yourself, if you're going into a store, you see something that's kind of cute, it's nothing nowadays to spend $10 or $20 just on something, right? It's not, you can just pick it up and you don't even think twice about it. So just think, if you have a booth that's $100 a month, or even $200, that's $10 items. Yeah. You sell that. If you can't sell 10 pieces at $10 in 4 weeks, then you have to reevaluate what you're selling.
Yeah, you may be in the wrong place.
Exactly. Right. There's something else going on there. But if you can't sell enough smalls to cover your rent in a month, then yeah, you need to reevaluate. But I think that I underestimated that, like how important it was, because I was selling furniture for hundreds of dollars. At the start, I didn't have a lot of smalls, so it stressed me out, right? So my antique mall, I can look up my sales every day. They upload it online. So I would go on and I would be like, oh, no furniture sold yet. Am I going to make rent? I was lucky that I did sell enough furniture to cover the rent, but that's when I was like, okay, that first month was really stressful, because I'm worried I'm not going to sell enough furniture to cover rent. So then, yeah, I just start bringing in the smalls, and now I don't even worry about it. I don't even worry about whether I'm going to make rent each month, because I know that in those 4 weeks that I'm going to sell enough items from, like I said, $5 to $20, I can cover my rent. Yeah. No problem. So
that's excellent advice, for sure. Okay. Last question that I have for you as we wrap up. If there's somebody here watching and they've kind of been doing this as a hobby, You know, they thought it was a fun idea. They found a space, they put some stuff in there, but they're ready to kind of level it up to try to get some regular income from it. They're ready to try to take it into a business level. What's one good tip that you could give them if that's the step they want to take?
Ooh, to take it to a business level income. Well,
well, I mean, and by business level income, that doesn't necessarily mean full-time salary. It could just mean consistent, that you know, there's so many people that you're like me. I mean, from month one, I've never been at a loss in my booth. I've never had to pay my rent. I've had a check every month and a profit. And that's an incredible blessing. And you're the same way. I've talked to so many people though, that's just not the case, that they paying rent every month. They don't have a check. They're at a loss. And sometimes that's fine and they don't really care. But then sometimes it's like, okay, no, I don't want it to be like that anymore. So you know, even it could just be like, hey, you want to make sure that you're in the black every month and that you're putting a little money in your pocket. Yeah.
Yeah. So my booth, I treat it like it's a mini brick and mortar.
Okay.
If I had my own retail space, I try to imagine, or I try to set up my booth so it feels like you're walking into a store, meaning I spend a lot of time on merchandising because I love merchandising. I know there's a lot of people at the antique malls, especially where I am, people will come and say, how do you know how to, you know, style? And I'm like, I don't know. I just play around with it until I think it looks half decent. I really love making little vignettes, showing, you know, I'll have a book stack, then I'll have a vase or I'll show people how to display it. And there's been many times where people will come and they'll just buy everything that's on that table because they've taken a picture of it and they said, I'm going to set that up like that at home.
Yeah.
So if what works for me that has really pushed my sales up is making sure that my booth is merchandised, displayed, or just looks appealing to people. And of course, coming in at least once a week and just rearranging. It doesn't even have to be rearrange your furniture. Rearrange, if you've got a table that's always in the middle of your booth, rearrange that display on the table every week. And don't underestimate the number of people that will come into that mall every single week. Like we have regulars that are in there all the time. And I think, did you really see anything new this week? You were just here last week, right? But there is, and our mall is massive. It is a old textile factory. It is 3 stories tall.
Wow.
So we have hundreds of vendors. I'm on the 2nd floor. So that place, yes, you could have people coming in weekly because you will not see everything at once. There's people that will go for an entire day and not see everything. It just becomes overwhelming because it's so big. So that's why I think it's really important to the merchandising. I mean, there's so many things that are important, but I really think for me, my booth, because I have a consistent theme or a brand, like a look to my booth. My booth is known as the one where almost everything is painted white. I have a lot of things that are stenciled in black on the white. I have tried to add color. I have tried to add color furniture, and in my area, or at least from my booth, they didn't want it. So if I've had to go back to whites, grays, beiges.
Yeah.
But if you just have a consistent look to your booth that stands out, that's not exactly the same as everybody else, that will draw customers' eyes in, especially if you're in a big mall. If you've got a person walking down an aisle and you've got, dishes, 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 people would just kind of put their blinders on and keep going. But if you've got something different or a different look or a different theme, like you could be selling dishes, but you might just have a whole different look to your booth than all the other 6 booths that are selling dishes. And that will help you stand out. It will help you get customers to walk into your booth.
Absolutely. And they will remember that the much higher chance of remembering where you are and being able to tell their friends how to find you, rather than, well, I don't know, I was just in this huge mall and there was this booth that had this stuff. You know, they'll go, okay, yeah, it's on the 2nd floor. Everything is white, right? That's not, like, you have to give them a hook to remember who you are. I think that's excellent advice. And that doesn't take necessarily spending any more money, maybe just a little bit more time and a little more thoughtfulness in maybe the inventory that you're buying and how you're putting it together. So I think that was a great tip to share. So,
Oh,
well, as we
perfect.
close out, tell us where everybody can find you, and then we'll be sure to have all of that linked to down in the video description so you guys can go follow along.
Okay, so on Facebook, it's the Chipped Mouse, and mouse is M-A-U-S. It's the German spelling.
Okay.
But you'll have that link. So it's the chip, and I'm the Chipped Mouse pretty much on every social media platform. So it's at the Chipped Mouse on Instagram. I have my own blog. The blog is more for articles on, I write up my DIY projects, step-by-step stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if I do a furniture makeover, I'll go through it. So that's mostly what's on my blog there. And it's thechippedmouse.com. I had to think about that for a second. And let me think, is there anything else? I will be starting up a YouTube channel.
All right.
I don't have anything posted there yet, but you've given me the inspiration. I have the back end of it started, but maybe one day in the next week or so, I can at least get, a little intro video up there. But
yeah, well, we'll send some people over there and they'll be waiting on you when you're ready. They'll be there waiting on you. So
perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to share what you're doing and for being open about that. Like I just really appreciate that. That one thing that has always kind of bugged me somewhat about this booth business. I feel like there's a lot of people that, there's this feeling we want to keep everything close to our chest. Like we don't want to share what's working because then we're afraid. And I understand, like, you don't need to reveal all of your sources and your best picking spots. But I just really think that if we can elevate our whole industry, like there's so many more customers out there that we haven't reached because there's people that would never think to come and shop in an antique mall. So there's this huge customer base that we can get to if together as an industry, we all do better and elevate ourselves, and then we all benefit from it. So I love that you were willing to share what's worked for you and things that also have been difficult, and just, I appreciate your honesty and authenticity of that. And I know everybody watching will too. So we're going to wrap it up. And again, I'll invite you to be a subscriber to Lost and Found. I've got more of these videos coming. And if you haven't checked out our antique booth playlist, there's a ton of videos on there. We've got videos about your Facebook page. We've got videos about styling shelves, lots of topics that we talked about. There's a video about branding your booth, lots of topics that we talked about today. There's videos in that playlist that you can go check out too. So we'll sign off and say bye. Thank you, Astrid, for joining us. And we'll see everybody again in about a week. Okay, bye guys.